They laughed at the black mechanic until he fixed the impossible engine. They thought he was nothing more than a poor, uneducated man who belonged under the hood of a car, not in the company of engineers. Laughter echoed when the black mechanic stepped forward, a challenge hurled at him like an insult. "If you fix this engine, I'll marry you." The room roared with mockery, certain he would fail. But what no one realized was that years of quiet struggle, brilliance born from necessity, and resilience carved by hardship were about to turn this cruel bet into an unforgettable moment of justice. In a small industrial town, factories dominated the landscape, their machines rattling through the day and night. Among them worked Samuel, a black mechanic who had grown up fixing broken tractors in his father's modest workshop. Unlike the engineers with polished degrees and clean white shirts, Samuel's knowledge came from grease-stained hands and years of solving problems others ignored. The engineers saw him as lesser, a helper, not a mind. Every day he endured dismissive looks, mocking whispers, and a constant reminder that society had stacked the deck against him. Yet Samuel never answered their insults with words. His answers were always in the way he worked: engines that purred again, machines that ran smoother than before, and problems solved that no textbook seemed to cover. One afternoon, a prestigious group of engineers gathered at the factory. An imported engine, massive and complex, sat silent, refusing to run despite their expertise. They poked and argued, their pride unraveling as hours passed without progress. That's when Samuel stepped forward, quietly offering to take a look. Instead of respect, his offer was met with laughter. One young engineer, puffed up with arrogance, sneered and declared, "If you fix this engine, I'll marry you." The others erupted in laughter. To them, it was impossible. To Samuel, it was a chance. He didn't want marriage, nor the validation of men who mocked him. What he wanted was simple: to prove that knowledge and dignity weren't bound by race or status. Samuel approached the silent machine, while the engineers watched with smirks. He laid his hands on the engine, not with hesitation, but with familiarity, as though he were greeting an old friend. Years of experience had taught him something that no formal education could. Machines spoke a language, and if you listened closely enough, they told you what was wrong. As he examined it, he recalled long nights working by lantern light, his father teaching him that no machine was beyond understanding if you had patience. Samuel checked the fuel system, traced the lines, listened to the subtle resistance of parts turning under his grip. The crowd grew restless, mocking him with whispers. What does he think he's doing? But Samuel tuned them out. In his mind, he wasn't in a room full of doubters. He was back in his father's workshop, solving problems piece by piece. Sweat ran down his temple as he adjusted bolts, cleaned clogged valves, and replaced worn parts the engineers had overlooked. Time stretched, but Samuel's focus never broke. Slowly, the room's laughter faded. Curiosity replaced mockery. The once confident engineer who had issued the bet now leaned forward, anxiety creeping across his face. The engine began to hum, faintly, then sputtered, fighting its way to life. Samuel adjusted once more, steady hands guiding the machine. Suddenly, a roar filled the air. The engine thundered alive, smooth and powerful, its vibration shaking the very floor. Gasps replaced laughter. Silence fell as the reality sank in. The man they had ridiculed, the one they dismissed as a mere mechanic, had done what their degrees and status could not. The engineer who mocked him turned pale, realizing his cruel words had set the stage for his own humiliation. The engine roared on, alive and undeniable. All eyes turned toward Samuel, no longer filled with ridicule, but with stunned disbelief. The arrogant engineer who had made the bet stood frozen, his mouth half open as though the words had been stolen from him. Samuel didn't gloat. He didn't smirk or throw their laughter back at them. He simply stepped away from the machine, wiping the grease from his hands with quiet dignity. His silence was louder than any boast. The engineer who had mocked him now faced the very crowd that once cheered him on. Their laughter had died, replaced with shame and awe. He had promised marriage, a ridiculous insult turned into a binding declaration. But Samuel, with his calm gaze, freed him without a word. His victory wasn't in humiliating one man, but in proving to them all that worth was never measured by skin color or academic titles. For the first time, the room understood. Samuel wasn't just a mechanic. He was a master, a man whose intelligence and perseverance had shattered their prejudice in a single thunderous roar of an engine. In the days that followed, the story of Samuel spread through the factory, the town, and beyond. No longer was he seen as just a pair of working hands. People spoke his name with respect, recalling the moment he silenced a room full of educated men with nothing but skill and resilience. But Samuel never let the praise change him. He returned to his workshop, continuing to fix engines with the same quiet humility. He knew the battle against prejudice was far from over, but he also knew he had planted a seed. The engineers, once arrogant, now carried with them the memory of a day when their pride was dismantled, not by lectures or arguments, but by undeniable proof. Samuel's story became more than just about an engine. It became a lesson. Greatness doesn't always wear a suit, carry a degree, or come from privilege. Sometimes it comes from the calloused hands of a man who refuses to be broken by a world determined to keep him small. As the engine's roar faded into memory, one truth remained. Laughter may belittle, arrogance may mock, but dignity, perseverance, and brilliance will always rise above. And so I ask you, the viewer, how many Samuels in our world go unnoticed, mocked, or underestimated because of the color of their skin? And what would our world look like if we listened, respected, and valued every voice equally?